Hello everyone. I said I'd do it if I got 200 subs. I had about 188 last time I looked, so I thought I'd better start doing it. This is Forsaken. I worked on this in 1997 after getting a job at Probe Software. A friend of mine we worked at a stationery shop in Causton in Surrey back in the 90s sometime, and he went off to university, and on his year out he got a job as a tester at Probe Software. And while he was at university he brought home some software called 3D Studio, and he used to hang out a lot, and he was showing me it, and I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. You had like these pyramids and balls and everything that you could manipulate in 3D space on the computer in DOS in those days, of course, don't forget. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. So I acquired a copy, shall we say. And I've just set about learning it, really. During his year out, when he was a tester, he said to me, oh, your stuff's pretty good. I'll take some in on a floppy disk. So he took some in on a floppy disk, got me the interview. I had the interview and I got the job, and that's how I got into the games industry. Absolute blind luck, really. And I remember being so excited when I first joined the industry. And the first couple of weeks was pretty like overwhelming. You're like, wow, and I've got to try and I faked my way in. I've got to show people that I can do these things. But like these levels, this is Forsaken here. It was all made out of little squares basically. And when I joined, there was just a multiplayer. Just a multiplayer game. There wasn't any single player game, so we had to design levels as well. We had to kind of say, right, okay, this is an abandoned ship, and give it a bit of a backstory, and say, oh, you have to. We used to think, right, you'd have to go to this place to trigger this event, and then that'll open this gate, and secrets and all that. So we had to design all that before we even got down to creating this, which was done in 3D Studio. First of all, it was done in 3D Studio. So we was doing it all, we was designing. There was loads of us who got hired at the time. I was one of, I think, of about, there must have been another, at least, probably over the year, about 10, maybe more people that got hired. And in those days, you were a designer, an artist, and everything. I mean, I knew, I've always done a bit of coding, so I was kind of like, that I can understand how the code works, so I was a bit more of a technical artist, and that's what I went on to do in the future. But yeah, I mean, these were literally just squares, and the whole texture map that you got for the whole level was only 256 by 256 pixels, if I remember correctly. That was for the whole map. Then the bike had a bit more on it, and you had, I think that was about it, really. You didn't really have that much memory in those days. And then, so you could literally just put you could cut out a square and put it on each square and try and line it up as best you could to try and make it look like, that's the ceiling, that's the floor, these are the walls. And the colours you can see here, like the green and the orange, that's basic vertex lighting, because you could go in up and like shade per vertex. But it was, it worked quite well for the time. But the lighting that you see, like all the lights being lit up by the weapons and stuff, was real time, which was pretty innovative for its time. And also the water effects. I remember one or two of the programmers working on the water effects, trying to get the water to actually act like water, because in those days we were all just kind of making it up. No, that there wasn't, it was the birth of 3D, really. I mean, this is when the 3DFX card came out, because it was all software rendered before, and then when the 3DFX cards came out, it was like, wow, look at that, huge resolution, 640 by 480, and and it ran at like 30 frames a second rather than crawling along at 320 by 240. But it was amazing to be working on this game. But everyone thinks, oh, working in the games industry must be amazing, but it's hard work, especially when you're coming up to deadlines. You are literally working. Well, in those days we were working 18-hour days. We'd be there at like 10, 11 o'clock at night with pizza and Coke, and trying to get it all done. But halfway through, we changed from 3D Studio to 3D Studio Max, or 3D Studio Max. And the collision skins, there was a problem with the collision skins. So I was asked to literally copy every map, square by square, in 3D Studio Max. So I literally had the level inside 3D Studio Max like imported, and I had to basically redraw every level square by square, so we could get, so it was more planar, so that the edges were flatter, something like that. I can't remember now, it's 20 odd years ago. But you know, and such a laborious task. I was just like, oh really, this is terrible. It was, but you know, and the game, we played it a lot as a development team. We used to play multiplayer a lot. You know, we got pretty good at it. And for its time, I mean, I was playing it earlier, and I think for its time, it was a very, very good game. You know, it was a Descent rip-off, basically, more than anything. But I think it was really good. It didn't do that well at marketing, though, for some reason. But if you want to know any questions, or if you've got any questions about Forsaken, just put a question in the comments and I'll try and answer it. And we'll go on to XG2, and I'll explain a little bit about what we were doing on there. Extreme G2. I remember I was asked to go on this project just to speed it up, basically. It was crawling along on the N64. I don't know if it was to do with the artists working on a PC title before or whatever, but you know, and in the N64, at the beginning of its life, it was pretty slow, I think. So I was basically brought on to cut the models down, to, you know, get the speed up. So I remember taking quite a few bits and bobs out of the environment, adding a few little bits and pieces. I mean, there's like a dumper truck that flies around, and there's some other objects that are flying around as you're driving through. I did all the bounding boxes for the bikes and stuff, just to, you know, so they didn't have to computate all of the whole bike. It was literally just a box around it. Just things like that, just to speed it up. Also the track, because the track was quite detailed for its time, there was loads of polygons there, so I literally created a collision skin which was lower resolution, so you know, it didn't have to compute so much, which speeded it up a little bit more, and we got it running at 25 frames a second. I think I can also remember the fog being brought forwards, because the draw distance was a bit too much, and it was a bit ropey. But it was a great title to work on. There was some really talented. I mean, I've worked with some really talented artists over the years, and you know, it was no different on this title. You know, considering, you know, you're probably looking at, for these bikes, probably 200 polygons. You know, when you consider today they probably got, I couldn't even imagine how many, but you know, probably 100,000 if not more. But yeah, I mean, you know, texture wise, it was really nicely textured. The sound was brilliant, and again, a great game to work on. And you know, I was very, very proud to be working on Extreme G, because I loved the first one. But Extreme G2, yeah, I mean, very proud to be working on that. And if you've got any questions about it, just leave a comment, and I'll try and remember. It's very difficult. But yeah, the next, I'll tell you the story of our Marines, which is where I threw my toys out the pram, and that's how I got onto Extreme G2. So, our Marines, Acclaim Studios. That's when we got bought out by Acclaim Studios, and we was like, there was a big thing going on. It's like, what are we, Iguana? Are we Acclaim Studios London? We're going to keep Probe's name or whatever. But there was a lot going on at that time. This is our Marines. In my opinion, not the best game in the world. I mean, I remember when I was put on it, they were using the Turok editor. So if you, Turok on the N64, which is an American Acclaim development, and we had to use the Turok editor, and it was basically a 2D editor for a 3D game, and I was put on the development of, you know, if we needed to update that editor basically, and I just thought, oh my god, what a piece of junk, really. At the time, it was so difficult to do something simple, just like creating a ladder. You just literally, if I can remember correctly, you just have a coloured ladder on a 2D plane, which signified you could move up like onto a platform, and it was so difficult to work with. And I just thought, how did they ever create a game with this editor? I was quite vocal about my my disdain for this game at the time, and I'm probably pissed a few people off, to be honest. But you know, I was young, and the game just, you know, I was these walking around 3D shooters, FPSs, if what we call them nowadays, on a pad. They just never worked for me. And working on the editor, it was just terrible, and I couldn't get off that quick enough, to be honest. But the guys working on it did an amazing job, really. I mean, you know, I know what they were up against, and what they did was really good, considering. I mean, I thought it was going to be really, really bad. I think that's why I wanted to get off of it, really. But yeah, they did really well. But again, any questions on this, leave a comment and I'll try and answer it as best as I can. But yeah, I was not a fan. And I got off of this and went on to Extreme G2 as quickly as I could. But with after Extreme G, we were also doing a few development titles. We were doing a Ferrari Formula 1 game and a Ferrari 360 game. I remember some of the team went over to Mugello in Italy. And yeah, I mean, you know, they spent a lot of money, I would have thought, for the Ferrari license. I was doing a few of the cars, working on some tracks and stuff. I haven't got anything nowadays, but you know, we were going along. There was only a few of us. There was a couple of programmers, and I think I was the only artist on it to start with, and I was creating the cars and the tracks. And it, you know, if I can remember, so such a long time ago, it was going quite well. But of course, you know, because Acclaim was, you know, going out of business or lacking funds or whatever, it soon went a bit downhill and it got canned in the end. And the last game I did for Acclaim, Probe, whatever you want to call them, was the conversion. I think they were just trying to really get some money quickly, so I converted the PC version of Revolt to the Dreamcast. And I'll talk about that in a moment. Dreamcast. What a fabulous machine that was. How Sega went at the console market is just terrible. Bit of a Sega fanboy myself, but there you go. So this is Revolt on the Dreamcast. Just after I'd finished doing Extreme G2, they asked if I could quickly turn around a conversion from the PC to the Dreamcast. It was very similar architecture, so it wasn't that difficult. I think the only thing that I remember that we really had to change was the Visi boxes, they called it back in those days, which was basically what gets rendered in front depending on the distance from the camera. And it was just, yeah, it's just a bit technical, and we literally just had to adjust these. So, you know, I think the PCs at the time had a bit more power with their 3D effects cards. I can't remember now, it was a long time ago. But the guys who worked on the original of this, I mean, they worked. I mean, I remember going and, you know, watching and playing it when it was in development for the PC, and I was like, wow, this is really good. The actual physics were proper physics. They weren't, you know, they were really good, and it was, you know, probably the first of its kind at the time. But it was a great game. and it was great to be working on. But once this was basically done, pretty much, if I remember correctly, most of the team got made redundant. They were saying we were going to move the offices into London, I think, which was more to get everyone to leave more than anything else. But I luckily kept my job for another month or so until it literally absolutely went tits up. And I remember them closing the studio, and people were walking out with their computers under their arms, and it was such an odd time, such a shame really, because it was a great company to work for. I mean, some of the guys that I work with, I still talk to today. They're on my Facebook. I'm talking, I talk to them all the time. So I made some great friends. But yeah, Revolt Dreamcast was another great game to put my name to, even though I was more, again, from the technical standpoint, doing it, literally just working out the technical aspects of how we can convert it. It's pretty boring. It doesn't really make the greatest video, to be honest, and it was literally just conveying those messages from the programmers to the artists and saying, this is what needs doing, and that was pretty much it. After that, I left Acclaim. I went on to do freelance work. I did a lot of freelance work after that. But if you'd like to hear about all my freelance stuff that I worked on moving forwards, including Powerpuff Girls, I know you all want to hear about that. But I also did I did the first mobile phone version of Need for Speed. I think that was the underground version actually. I also did a Most Wanted version of that for mobile phones. Did System Rush 2, I think it was, for the mobile phones. I did a few others. Tiger Woods PGA Tour on the Wii, I think it was, and a few others. I can't remember off the top of my head. But if you want to hear about it, I'll try and throw a video together about anything. And if there's enough interest, maybe I can do a live stream, because if somebody asks me a question, then I'll probably be like, oh, I know, yeah, I remember that. But just trying to think off the top of my head things that we used to get up to 20 odd years ago is pretty difficult. But I hope you enjoyed it anyway. And I hope to do another video soon. And thanks for your interest.